Fire Emblem is a series about choices. Which house should you pick? Do you save the villagers, or do you watch them burn because you needed that one turn to heal Bartra? Do you deploy Est, or do you actually want to win? But some choices don't just affect how your story plays out. Some choices decide which people even exist in your army in the first place. These are the route-locked characters, units who only show up if you follow a certain path, visit a certain house, or play as one lord over another. They're the you-mystic characters of Fire Emblem, and today we're exploring their history. The very first Fire Emblem is also, naturally, the very first game where route-locked characters make their appearance. Aaron and Samson are a paladin and hero that each show up in the same chapter in different villages. However, visiting one village will cause the other to shut its doors to your army permanently, meaning you can only recruit one into your army in any playthrough. This persists into Mystery of the Emblems Book 1, where the two are finally able to work side by side in Book 2 as well as New Mystery of the Emblem. In addition to these two, the remakes of the first game, Shadow Dragon, also offers up characters that you can only recruit by killing off enough members of your army. Whether or not you choose to count them as full route split worthy characters is up to you, but for the purposes of this video, we'll be counting them. These characters are Athena, Horus, Etzel, Ymir, and Nagi. Frey and Norn are also new additions in Shadow Dragon, but they do not come from a paralogue chapter and thus don't count for the purposes of this discussion. Next up is Gaiden and its remake Shadows of Valentia. One could really argue that the majority of the cast is route-locked in this game thanks to the player controlling two separate armies with entirely different casts. For example, you'll never have Jesse in Alm's army, and you'll never have Zeke in Celica's. However, this isn't strictly true, as the armies do combine for the post-game of Shadows of Valentia, allowing you access to the full roster. Instead, we'll be talking about Sonia and Dean. You can only ever recruit one of the two in any playthrough, as recruiting them requires killing the other. Interestingly, the common consensus is that Sonia is the better recruit in Gaiden, while Dean is the better recruit in the remake. Genealogy takes route exclusivity and turns it cruel. Depending on who survives and who pairs up, entire characters are locked away. Want Arthur? You need Tail to make it to Gen 2. Want Corpora to have Forseti instead of Seti? Have fun regretting every decision that led you there. Genealogy doesn't just make characters route-locked, it makes them bloodline-locked. Not only will you only see certain child units by pairing up your Gen 1 units, you'll only be able to use certain items by pairing up certain units in specific ways as well. In addition to this, each Gen 2 child unit has a potential replacement unit that only shows up if their parent isn't paired off by the end of Gen 1. As such, the possible army combinations in this game are quite high, though whether or not you'd describe any of these characters as route-locked is up to you. In Thracia 776, there are a total of 9 characters with split availability, most of which are decided on between the two alternate routes the player can take at the end of Chapter 15. The player can choose to either go west to Fort Norden, or east to Millful Forest. If the player chooses to go west, they'll be able to recruit Ilios, Sloof, and Misha. Since Amalda can only be recruited by Sloof, you can count her among the recruits exclusive to this route as well. By going east, the player instead can recruit Shanam and Miranda, and since Cotamor requires Miranda to be recruited, you can count him toward this route's recruits just as we did with Amalda for the other route. The final choice is between Sias and Ced in Chapter 23. Sias is automatically recruited here, but Ced can be spoken to with leave to have him recruited. If he does so, Sias will leave your army at the end of the chapter. Finally, we're at the GBA era of games, which really leaned into this mechanic. Fire Emblem 6, the Binding Blade, featured 2 route splits with exclusive characters available to each. The first of the route splits is determined by which house you visit in Chapter 9. If you visit the northwestern house, you'll end up on the A route, which allows you to exclusively unlock Echidna and Larum. On the other hand, visiting the northeastern house or not visiting either leads you down the B route, where you'll instead get Elfin and Bartra. Another route split occurs later in the game depending on whether your Nomads or Pegasus Knights have more EXP in total. If your Pegasus Knights have more, you'll end up on the A route headed toward Ilia and face several snow-covered maps and eventually recruit Juno. If your Nomads have more instead, you'll go the B route, visit the Plains of Sakai, fighting through many tough maps and eventually recruiting Dayan. There are also many chapters that require you to have met certain requirements to unlock that reward you with bonus items, and clearing all of them is required to unlock a few extra chapters at the end of the game as well as the true ending. It is also only in this true ending route that you can recruit Corel. Fire Emblem 7, the Blazing Blade, has many similar route splits to its predecessor. Many chapters require certain requirements to be met in order to take them on, with some of these chapters even having units locked behind them. In addition to this, there are two route splits based on EXP gain just like in the previous game. The first route split occurs based on whether your lords' combined levels are equal to or greater than 50 before chapter 23. If they are, you'll face Linus's version of the chapter and be able to recruit Geats. Otherwise, you'll face Lloyd's chapter and be able to recruit Wallace. The second route split occurs depending on whether Sarah, Urk, Priscilla, and Lucius have more EXP in total than Dorcas, Bartra, Guy, and Raven. If they do, you'll end up on Kenneth's version of the map. Otherwise, you'll end up on Germain's. Funnily enough, both versions of this map offer the same potential recruits, though with different requirements for each to appear. Regardless, only one of either Harkin or Corel can be recruited on either version of this chapter, making them both route-exclusive units in this game. Finally, there are two units that only show up in Hector mode, one of which under very specific conditions. These units are Farina, who the player must pay a hefty sum to recruit, and Carla, who requires a level 5 warrior or higher Bartra to survive a round of combat against her in the arena to be recruited. Strangely, there are no true route-locked units in the Sacred Stones, as the units that would be are instead unlocked for your army upon regrouping with the lord you didn't choose to follow the journey of. The Tellius games have two instances of route exclusivity, the first of which is based on whether or not Ike manages to defeat the Black Knight in their duel. If he succeeds, Nasir joins your army as the only playable White Dragon. If he fails, Enna joins instead as the only playable Red Dragon. The other instance occurs in the final chapter of the game. Once certain conditions are met, you get to choose between summoning Tavarn, Gifka, or Nasala to join your army for the final battle. And with that, we move onward to the 3DS era. Awakening lightly dips its toes into exclusivity, with children units and their abilities depending heavily on who parented them. But Fates is the poster child for route exclusivity. Birthright, Conquest, Revelation? Pick a side and you instantly walk away half the cast. Xander or Ryoma? Only both in Revelation. Scarlet? Only in Birthright. Izana? Not in Revelation. No matter what route you pick, a large chunk of the cast becomes either irrelevant or dead. To discuss it in detail, these characters are only playable in Birthright and Revelation. These characters are only playable in Conquest and Revelation. This guy is only available in Birthright. This guy is only available in Birthright and Conquest. And this guy only becomes playable in Revelation. This is before bringing child units into the equation. Fates is, without a doubt, the biggest game for route splits in the entire franchise. Three Houses is where this design philosophy truly reached its pinnacle. While most characters can be recruited onto any route with enough investment into a specific stat, or by ranking up your supports with them, the three lords will never fight in the same army, nor will their adjutants. That being said, it is still possible to recruit Hilda into the Black Eagles provided that the player is locked into not going down Edelgard's route. In addition to this, Yuritsa is only recruitable in Edelgard's route. The other characters that are route locked include not being able to recruit Gilbert, Catherine, Cyril, or Sedith into the Black Eagles on Edelgard's route, or just Gilbert if not following Edelgard's route. So, what started as picking which house to visit has evolved to become one of Fire Emblem's defining storytelling tools. Route-exclusive characters are more than just missed units. They're an extension of the question Fire Emblem always asks you. Who are you going to fight with, and who are you going to fight against? And if you want all of them, well, I guess you'll just have to start up a new playthrough. Thank you as always for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and click the bell if you'd like to get notified when I post a new video. A special thank you to patron 60 Sweep and Gorilla Danny for subscribing at the Paladin tier. I'd really appreciate it if you checked out the links in the description if you can, but otherwise, have a great rest of your day.